please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Log, Supplemental. The most satisfying part of being a part of the Halls of Injustice that sounded wrong is that we now get to fully induct Valarie Vallow and ensure her a lifetime of perpetual suffering. Consider it a privilege. It is going to be quite a lengthy stay for her. Hello everyone, welcome to the Halls of Injustice. Today we welcome one of our very first inmates, because it turns out it has taken years, literal years, to get this person here, forever to be consigned to a fate of solitude and suffering, one they truly deserve for the heinous crimes they've committed. Her name is Valarie Vallow. Her husband, Chad Daybell, isn't on trial yet, but she's been sentenced, and we have been looking forward to this one. For all the wrong reasons, of course. How dare I take perverse pleasure in locking some silly bitch up. The very first video I ever made on Valarie Vallow was on the 1st of January 2020, titled Valarie Vallow and the Missing Children. I then made a two-parter, Halls of Injustice, on Valarie Vallow on the 17th of February and 25th of February 2020. The final video was Where Are They Now? Valarie Vallow and Chad Daybell on the 12th of December 2021. What I'm going to do now, and you might not like this, but for the sake of this video being as complete as it can be, I'm going to play clips from each of those videos, providing the relevant information you need to know what got Valarie Vallow into trouble in the first place, and then we're going to carry on with what happened after the Where Are They Now from 2021, because 2022 was a very interesting year. 2023, as far as results go, was the best year. Of course, it can get a lot better when Chad Daybell goes to prison as well. The mother's name is Valarie Vallow. Now she has two children called Joshua Vallow and Tylee Ryan. These children have not been seen since September, and at present Valarie Vallow is proving rather troubling to deal with the police. The police and investigators believe that Valarie Vallow knows either the location of the children or what has happened to them. This is, at time of recording, according to a press release that has been issued on Monday by the Rexburg police, with the release indicating that the police know the children are not with their mother and her husband. To further aid the police, Valarie Vallow has decided not only to not work with law enforcement to find the children, but has decided to leave the state. In the press release, it said that it is astonishing that rather than work with law enforcement to help us locate her own children, Valarie Vallow has decided to leave the state with her new husband. An attorney for that family has released a statement with East Idaho News saying that while he's in contact with Valarie Vallow and her husband Chad Daybell, he does not have information about the children, with him saying Chad Daybell was a loving husband and has the support of his children in this matter. Valarie Daybell is a devoted mother and resents assertions to the contrary, and we look forward to addressing the allegations once they have moved beyond speculation and rumor. To add more to this mystery, with the children being missing and obviously a top priority for investigators to locate, Valarie Vallow married Daybell weeks after Daybell's wife was found deceased in her Fremont County home back in October. Initially, it was attributed to natural causes. However, on December 11th, authorities exhumed her remains and now think her death was suspicious, with Vallow's husband also passing away earlier this year. So now you know all of this, we should go back to when the children initially went missing and how it took so long before something happened. This all came about because the police conducted a welfare check on Joshua, who is Vallow's adopted son with her previous husband, and on November 26, after relatives raised concerns about not hearing from him, during the welfare check, Vallow and Daybell told investigators that Joshua was staying with family friends in Arizona. When police returned the next day to execute a search warrant because that was not adequate, Daybell and Vallow fled the home, which totally alleviates any and all guilt placed on Valarie Vallow and Mr. Daybell. Totally. The investigators later determined that they did not take Joshua with them when they fled, and that he was not staying at a friend's house. No doubt the information they provided about the friend in Arizona and contact details yielded results that were equivalent to the contents of an empty bag. To add further confusion to all of this, we've only really spoken about Joshua. We've not referenced the other child, the 17-year-old daughter, Tylee Ryan. The reason for that is because the police have learned that Daybell and Lori Vallow were telling witnesses that Tylee had passed away a year before the death of her father, which investigators have concluded is not true. And Daybell continued to tell other witnesses that Lori Vallow had no minor children. And I want to add an additional detail that has the police worried. It is that Chad Daybell is the author of a series of books aimed at a Mormon audience that focuses on near-death experiences and doomsday themes, with himself and Lori Vallow being both contributors to an organization that dabbles in the very same themes. And as an additional note, the welfare check came about because of concerned family, a grandmother no less. It is the same family who, upon alerting the police, also informed them about how Lori Vallow had changed from being a loving mother to essentially a monster who was busy preparing with a cult who were obsessed with preparing for the end of the world. Welcome to the Halls of Injustice number 8. I recommended, I believe in the video, that they send Dog the Bounty Hunter. I still think actually they should send Dog the Bounty Hunter, because she turned up in his neck of the woods, Hawaii.
Hi. How's it going? Are you Captain Lord? This is all you can serve.
Do you have any questions regarding that?
Interesting, right? Well, it's not as interesting as you think. In fact, the reason why she ended up there was because that was where she married Chad Daybell, you know, her fellow Armageddonist. Is that a faith? So while Lori Vallow is busy with her doomsday cult, because that's what it actually is, we would know more about where the children are and she wouldn't be so brainwashed. At present, one of the cell phones has been found from the teenage girl, and that is Tylee Ryan's. Now, it was found with Lori Vallow, who's now considered a person of interest only. The priority of the police is to, of course, find the children, so they cannot speculate on the condition of those children until they are found. They just have nothing to go on, which is quite tricky. One of Lori Vallow's friends has spoken to Lori Vallow and said that Lori declared this media hype and that she was waiting for it to die down before she revealed what had been going on, forgetting here the obsessive nature of the American police. No offense, this is actually a compliment. The friend is called April Raymond, and she did say that she would describe it as something a little more serious, a lot more serious, which doesn't do anything to help us, since the children haven't been seen since September in Rexburg, Idaho. The fact you fled the police after lying to them, the fact the children are missing, the fact that somebody had filed a complaint and you went so far away. At present, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell are hiding in Princeville, Hawaii. The mother was served with a court order requiring her to physically produce the children to authorities by January 30th, which means that the police now are well within their right to charge her with contempt of court and seek her extradition from Hawaii. Comes a new picture. Gone is the smiling, happy-go-lucky doomsday cultist. And in his... are those lips upside down? You know, I don't usually attack people based on appearance, but that is one bitter-looking person. Did you suck a lemon before you came in? Now, Lori Vallow was arrested in Hawaii on Thursday, which comes months after her two children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow, were last seen. She is facing multiple charges, which include 2 felony counts of desertion and non-support of children. That is according to a criminal complaint that was filed with an Idaho court. Lori Vallow has admitted that she asked a friend to lie to the police about the son's whereabouts. She is currently being held on a $5 million bail. Now, at present, Vallow's attorney is not giving back or giving out any statements on this, with court documents being released by Madison County Prosecutor's Office, which were obtained by KTVK, a CNN affiliate. The records detail how Joshua, or JJ, was reported missing in November, with the initial efforts of police to find him and how police discovered that his older sister was also missing. The Cliff's notes of this case are: the detectives in Rexburg, Idaho asked Laurie about her son's whereabouts in November. She said they were staying in Arizona, which was later debunked, with Laurie then being asked by detectives to prove that they were there, and she said they were seeing Frozen 2. A week later, a friend called the police saying that both Vallow and her husband had asked her to lie to the police after they had summarily run off. On Friday, Laurie Vallow appeared in a Kauai state court for an extradition hearing. Vallow's attorneys asked the court to lower her bail to $10,000, which I assume was marginally more affordable than the $5 million. The judge kept it at the $5 million and ordered that if Vallow posted bail, she must surrender any passport that she possesses to the Kauai Police Department. Chad Daybell is not facing any charges, but he was present in the courtroom for the duration of this hearing. March the 2nd is when the extradition hearing takes place. This entire case, and I'm going to give a very brief opinion for a moment, absolutely reeks of doomsday. If one is not prepared for the end of the world, one must make sure that those that should surely carry the family name and obviously build a better world aren't here to experience the end. Saying Chad Daybell was not facing any charges did not age well. On the 9th of June, remains were found on the property of Chad Daybell in Salem, Ohio. Chad Daybell was then arrested on Tuesday and charged with a felony count of construction or concealment of evidence. It took a few days, but the police were then able to confirm the remains found were that of J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan, meaning the search was over, they had actually found them and they were deceased, in Chad Daybell's back garden. Chad Daybell's bail was set at $1 million. And just to throw this in here as a random thought, Chad Daybell's previous occupation would be gravedigger. That's not coincidental in the slightest, is it now? Now, how did the police find them? Well, it turns out it can actually be tied back to Laurie Vallow's now deceased brother, the one she had used as claiming that the children were staying with him in Arizona. Location data from a phone belonging to Vallow's brother Alex Cox led investigators to this precise spot on the property where the bodies were found. Eventually, the desertion charges that Laurie Vallow faced were dropped, but not all of them, and other charges were laid at her feet, which would include 2 counts of conspiring to destroy or alter evidence in addition to felony charges related to the children going missing. During hearings, evidence was presented including a number of phone calls, the more notable of which would be a phone call between Laurie Vallow and Chad Daybell while the police were searching the property.
The house again?
Yeah.
Were they in the house?
No, the property. They're searching.
Chad Daybell then went on to plead not guilty to burying the 2 children's bodies. Chad Daybell's attorney then asked for the trial to be moved because he believed the jury will be, well, biased. Now, there were attempts made by the district attorney to try Laurie Vallow and Chad Daybell together, but something, well, kinda went wrong, and this is where we get to the where are they now. Laurie Vallow was eventually, after much wrangling, determined to be unfit to stand trial, and this came from a clinical psychologist, so Laurie Vallow was committed to a mental health facility. Fun fact though, with all the information that's continuing to come out, prosecutors are still seeking the death penalty against Chad Daybell. At the same time, they are not overly fond of the idea of not trying them together. So in fact, they're going to try them together once Laurie Vallow is declared fit to stand trial. So where are they now? Laurie Vallow is in a mental institution. Chad Daybell is behind bars, where he will wait until Laurie Vallow is cleared so they can both stand trial for this absolutely heinous crime. The reason we're doing this instead of skipping straight to the trial is because I made an error in my Where Are They Now, which is why it was quite a short part of that rather large Cliff's Notes. The error was I left out far too much. For example, insanity. So let's go to that first before we get to the eventual trial of Laurie Vallow, filling in the gaps that need to be filled, including the charges she initially faced. On the 11th of June 2020, courtesy of The Sun, cops were facing questions about why it took so long to find the bodies of Lorrie Vallow's children after raiding Chad Daybell's home for a second time. At that point, when the house was raided a second time and both remains were found and it was confirmed to be the children, both Lorrie Vallow and Chad Daybell were both arrested and charged over the disappearance. It was also around this time Lorrie Vallow was connected to 3 mysterious deaths, which included her ex-husband, her brother, and her second husband's ex-wife. A criminal complaint was filed in Fremont County. This detailed how Lorrie Vallow allegedly tried to conceal the bodies between September the 8th, 2019 and June the 9th, 2020. Initially, upon being arrested, they first started to appear in court via Zoom until the bodies were confirmed. The bail at that time for Chad Daybell was set at $1 million. The judge did though state if he was able to post bail, he could only live in 4 counties in Idaho, and he has to let the court know where he's living, and he must wear an ankle monitor. Lorrie Vallow had been charged with child abandonment, obstructing an investigation, contempt of court, and soliciting a crime. She did plead not guilty and was in jail on a $1 million bond. Oh, and a fun little fact for you. They were both Latter-day Saints, but were kicked out of the church a year ago, in the timeline, so 2019, after Chad Daybell proclaimed himself a prophet. On the 14th of June 2020, this was when the police had managed to confirm that the human remains found buried in the backyard were her 2 children, Tylee Ryan and Joshua Vallow. On the 2nd of July 2020, desertion charges were dropped against Lorrie Vallow, and there's a reason for that, because they didn't need that to get her locked up. They really didn't. Other charges still stood at this point, but additionally, there were other charges for her husband, which included 2 felony counts of conspiracy to commit destruction, alteration, or concealment of evidence, and 2 felony counts of destruction, alteration, or concealment of evidence. Lorrie Vallow's next court hearings didn't take place until August the 10th and August the 11th. Fun little fact about Chad Daybell, he's still locked up because he had actually attempted, allegedly, to flee the moment the children's bodies were dug up. A phone was found in the location where the children was buried. That phone belonged to Alex Cox. Alex Cox is Lorrie Vallow's brother, who had passed away apparently due to natural causes courtesy of a blood clot. Alex Cox had shot her ex-husband Charles Vallow, who claimed it was self-defense. Nothing sus there, folks. On the 17th of July 2020, the judge reduced the bond for Lorrie Daybell in one of 2 cases tied to her passing children. One of them was reduced from $1 million to $150,000. This is because the prosecutors withdrew felony charges of child abandonment and non-support following the discovery of the children's remains. It should be pointed out though she was still facing multiple charges at this point, and at this point no one had been charged with the deaths of the 2 children. There's a reason for that, we'll get to it soon. Oh, and you know how they were both doomsday cultists? The apparent end of the world was July 23rd, 2020. While they were busy sat in prison, sod all happened, the world is still here, you fail. Around the time of the hearings, expert legal people, yes, claimed that the only way they were really going to get any headway into this case for the prosecutors and investigators would be to get Lorrie Vallow and Chad Daybell to turn on each other. There's a small problem with this, and it is just how devoted to each other they are. Now, on the 21st of August 2020, Chad Daybell pled not guilty to concealment charges, with his trial set for January. The prosecutors desperately wanted to have both of them stand trial together, but a few spanners in the works did not aid in this. On the 8th of September 2020, a woman who did not want to be named, called Jane Doe, that is not her real name of course, spoke out after spending 4 days in jail alone with Lorrie Vallow. During that time, Lorrie spoke of her new husband, her son, Colby Ryan. This has since been corroborated, the time spent by Jane Doe and Lorrie Vallow, because Jane Doe was actually there on a parole violation. Quote, "Everybody in the jail was talking about how Lorrie was coming back from Hawaii and we wondered if we'd be able to see her. So I'm sitting in the pod and in walks 2 or 3 guards with her. They were very nice, she was nice. She walked in with her stripes on, but she also had bulletproof vests on. I've never seen another inmate like that." She also confirmed she made no point to talk about the children, she wanted to gain her trust, and that Lorrie Vallow merely confirmed the Hawaii jail was horrendous, there were roaches on the floor. How exciting, right? Officially, on the 2nd of September 2020, the state of Idaho motioned for Laurie Vallow and Chad Daybell cases to be tried together. On the screen now are the official motions confirming that, with Laurie Vallow's reading the state of Idaho by and through the Madison County Prosecutor's Office, which has been appointed as a special prosecutor in the above captioned case, and pursuant to Idaho criminal rules, hereby moves the court to join the defendant Laurie Vallow Daybell's case with her co-defendant Chad Daybell's case. Fremont County case number, based on the fact that the charges against the defendant and co-defendant allege they participated in the same act or series of acts and conspired to commit the alleged acts or series of acts. This motion is supported by the attached memorandum, and the state requests a hearing on this matter. On the 29th of October 2020, a judge agreed to join the cases against Laurie Vallow and Chad Daybell at a hearing in Madison County, Idaho. Chad and his attorney appeared at the hearing via Zoom. Laurie did not appear because her attorney said she is not opposed to the joinder. Both, at this point, maintained a not guilty plea to all charges. We're now going to skip ahead to the 25th of May 2021, 6 months after that last court appearance for a joinder trial. Laurie Vallow and Chad Daybell were both indicted on a charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Tamara Daybell, Chad Daybell's previous wife. He'd received a $430,000 life insurance payout because while he claimed she had passed away peacefully in her sleep and he declined to have an autopsy performed, she hadn't. A medical examiner ruled that actually it was homicide. A sentence for which in the state of Idaho can range from life to prison without parole or the death penalty. It was also around this time that both Laurie Vallow and Chad Daybell were indicted on the murder of Tylee Ryan and Joshua J.J. Vallow. But this is where the swerve comes in. That was the 25th of May. On the 27th of May, Laurie Vallow was determined to be not competent to proceed following an assessment by a clinical psychologist. Restorative treatment was then recommended, and this is based on an evaluation performed 2 months earlier after her fitness to proceed was questioned by the court. The prosecution was objected to the findings of the evaluation, and a future hearing at that point was scheduled on the issue according to the ruling itself. So the reason we're in 2023 and it took so long to get to the finish line is because for a while she was determined unfit to stand trial, and they really wanted to do these together. So that meant that Chad Daybell was going to sit there and wait. As a consequence of being declared mentally unfit to stand trial, she was committed to a mental health facility. This facility was the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare for care and treatment at an appropriate facility for no more than 90 days. Her condition will then be evaluated at the beginning and periodically throughout according to the order. And yes, while I was busy plugging my own merch, others sent this to me as well. Thank you for that. Not long after she was committed to a mental health facility, text messages between Laurie Vallow and her brother's widow surfaced. These messages almost portray Laurie as if she was an exalted goddess directed to lead 144,000 people with Chad Daybell to prepare for the end of the world. Yes, they believed they had superhuman powers including teleportation, causing harm to others, calling up natural disasters, praying away demonic spirits, and having visions. Not a joke. Here is some of the messages in news form. It is quite tragic. For example, she had a vision she could create storms and fire and will have the eye of the Lord. My personal favorite, she was told by God that she is to protect her. Right. Well, you did a bang-up job of that with your children, you stupid bitch. For his part in the deaths of Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow, prosecutors sought the death penalty against Chad Daybell. That was announced in August, a month and a half into Laurie Vallow's stay at a mental health facility. Chad Daybell's children, by the way, did reveal in an interview, he has 5 by the way, in an episode of 48 Hours, stating that they presume innocence until proven guilty, a totally fair position to hold. An earlier stated point that actually has proven true now, by the way, is that Chad Daybell's case was being held for as long as it could until Laurie Vallow was declared fit to stand trial. That was pointed out on the 28th of September 2021. On the 8th of September 2021, her stay was extended another 180 days, meaning a joint trial would not begin, if it was to begin, until March 2022. She really is doing a good job pushing this back though, eh? Let's see, your doomsday cult prediction failed, you're not an exalted goddess, your teleportation worked, it bloody well hasn't yet, apparently handcuffs and a jumpsuit is all that needed to keep you in place, and the only harm you've legitimately been accused of causing are to your 2 children that you have well and truly betrayed. Although it could be argued you were on your 5th marriage. How many of those marriages were good again? As not to say your previous husband, Chad Daybell, was a saint. I am very much aware of the accusations of S.assault against him, courtesy of Tylee Ryan and Colby Ryan as well, your other child. Yes, I pay attention. Owing to a lack of information pertaining to the case, we now skip ahead to July 23rd, 2022. During this time, CBS had put out a 42-minute video called The Secrets of Chad Daybell's Backyard. This was a part of a series called 48 Hours that we've already discussed. Chad Daybell's children also spoke up a bit more and believed that Chad Daybell was fooled in the worst, most deadly way possible by Lorrie Vallow. Quote from Emma Murray, "My father needs someone to be a voice for him, to let people know what's real, what we know." Supported by Mark Daybell, her brother, who says that anyone that says my dad could kill a person doesn't know my dad. As this video is about Lorrie Vallow, we're going to try and avoid too much of that because I have a feeling he's getting his own one in the future. On the 20th of August 2022, sleuths believe that she, Lorrie Vallow, is sending secret messages to husband Chad Daybell after strange details were seen on her fingers. The strange detail is that she's wearing a black hairband around her wedding ring finger, to imply that her wedding ring is still there. It is believed that this is a sign she is showing her dedication to Chad Daybell. On the 17th of August, she appeared in court finally. Her attorney sought to change the charges. At this point, the charges were conspiracy to kill her children and to steal their social security benefits. Her attorney asked the judge to send the case back to a grand jury because they say the indictment is confusing. They firmly believe that on one of the conspiracy charges, the prosecutors say the couple planned to kill Vallow Daybell's daughter, Tylee Ryan, and steal the social security benefits the child was receiving because her father had died. The other conspiracy charge involves the same allegations, but in connection with her son's death. Under the plan proposed by the defense attorneys, the case would then be returned to the grand jury so the charges could be tweaked. Understandably so, if you're low IQ, you need to make it as simple as possible. Chad Daybell, though, made a rather interesting request. He wanted his trial to be delayed and severed from Lorrie Vallow's. That was on the 29th of September 2022. On the 8th of October 2022, a former Attorney General said the concern over Lorrie Vallow's competency are valid following a judge's ruling to vacate the murder trial. Those comments came from David Leroy, who warned that this case is full of flip-flops and that this is a situation that makes very little mental health sense from the onset. And that is because a judge had previously ruled she was mentally fit to stand trial after 11 months of competency restoration. This is getting befuddling, baffling, and the timeline almost makes about as much sense as the Flash movie. Can we not? On the 20th of November 2022, Lorrie Vallow's ex-mother-in-law Kay Woodcock, the grandmother of Lorrie Vallow's son JJ Vallow, told the United States version of The Sun that Lorrie Vallow's trial is going to be a living hell to sit through, but she's eager to get it behind her. Quote, "It's going to be a living hell because I promise you we only know a small amount of the details. They have a mountain of evidence and currently we only know an inch of that mountain. So we're going to learn some horrendous things. And if anything's going to kill me through this, it'll be that trial. So I want to get it done so I can get past all that." This was shortly after Lorrie Vallow had been declared fit to stand trial. It should be noted, her mental capacity was questioned up until and including the trial itself. On the 14th of December 2022, a new trial date was set for Lorrie Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell. Their trial was expected to begin on the 3rd of April 2023. This was an updated trial date after the original January 2023 was vacated until a competency level could be determined with Lorrie. Chad Daybell's lawyer has argued that they need more time to review evidence and that a trial date should be no earlier than October of 2023. Lorrie's lawyer argued that since she hadn't waived her right to a speedy trial, the court needed a date as soon as February 2023. The next hearing that took place was expected on February 27, 2023 for Chad Daybell and Lorrie Vallow. The reason for this is so that the parties shall discuss potential settlement of the case before the date of the final pre-trial conference scheduled for the 27th of February 2023 at 1:30 p.m. At the final pre-trial conference, the parties must be prepared to inform the court whether the case is going to trial. On the screen now are the images of the notice of trial setting and pre-trial conference documents, so do feel free to pause the video if you need to read these. I have given you the Cliffs Notes already, so you shouldn't require that. Lorrie Vallow's attorneys have asked an Idaho judge to dismiss the death penalty ahead of her trial. This was on the 8th of March 2023. Quote, "The government wanting to kill a mentally ill person is a troubling thought. Yet she was still deemed and determined to be competent enough to stand trial." The decision on the death penalty took the judge 2 weeks to make up their mind on. The district judge, Steve Boyce, had heard oral arguments on motions filed by Daybell's attorneys. The attorneys asked for prosecutors to turn over all written and recorded statements made by Chad Daybell while in custody. They also asked the judge to exclude evidence prosecutors disclosed to them on the 27th of February 2023 at 4:07 p.m. This is when the argument of the death penalty being dismissed were raised. Quote, "Media saturation, multiple violations by the government's knowledge of my client's mental health, and the practical standpoint that Idaho had been trying to kill people on death row and hasn't been able to do it because the Idaho Department of Correction can't get chemicals to kill people." The decision was made on March the 22nd, 2023. Lorrie Vallow was scheduled to be transported to the Ada County Jail no later than March the 25th, 2023. Potential jurors will complete questionnaires on the 27th of March and the 28th of March before jury selection began on April the 3rd, 2023. Chad Daybell's trial was then at that point with no set date for a trial. He had successfully managed to move his trial to be done separately from that of Lorrie Vallow's. Film director Sky Borgman, who produced Sins of Our Mother on Netflix that followed the case of Lorrie Vallow, believed that what would happen is that Lorrie Vallow will stay true to Chad Daybell, but once the trial is over, Chad Daybell will throw her under the bus, even though it is speculated Lorrie's legal advice or counsel had told her to throw him under the bus to make it easier on herself. Larry Woodcock, the grandfather of J.J. Vallow, called for the death penalty during an interview on News Nation's Banfield program. When he was asked if that was the method he would like Daybell to face, the firing squad, he said yes, absolutely. And this is because Republican Governor Brad Little, a month earlier, had signed a bill allowing the execution by firing squad, which made Idaho the latest state to turn to older methods of capital punishment amid a nationwide shortage of lethal injection drugs. Lorrie Vallow's trial began on Monday the 3rd of April inside an Idaho courtroom with the first day of jury selection. And this is where we're now going to go next, to the trial of Lorrie Vallow Daybell. I'm going to leave the Daybell part off though. Just Lorrie Vallow. No lie, over 60 witnesses were called to stand. 60! During the trial, prosecutors described Lorrie Vallow as a negligent mother with extreme beliefs who was on a religious mission that she viewed as being more important than caring for her children. Quote from the prosecutor Lindsay Blake, "The defendant and Chad used their self-proclaimed religious teachings to justify their actions to others, their actions from affair to murder." The trial began on April the 3rd. By May the 10th, 60 witnesses have been called. When you take into account the first week involved opening statements and jury selection, this becomes even more impressive. A DNA analyst had testified that a hair found stuck to duct tape wrapped around JJ's body matched his mother. Former friends of Lorrie Vallow spoke about the couple's perpetrated religious beliefs. One, Melanie Gibb, said that Lorrie Vallow believed that evil spirits would turn people into zombies by taking over their bodies, and that she called JJ and Tylee zombies. Melanie Gibb also testified that Lorrie Vallow believed that the only way to get rid of the evil spirit was to kill the body. In his opening statement, Jim Archibald, the lawyer for Lorrie Vallow, described her as a kind and loving mother to her children, who was interested in religion and biblical prophecies involving the end of the world. He said that she was with other people in her apartment when JJ and Tylee were unalived, and that she was in Hawaii at the time of Tammy Daybell's death. Tammy Daybell, Tamara, is Chad Daybell's ex that passed away under mysterious circumstances. Laurie Vallow did not testify in her own defense, and no lie, her lawyers rested their case without calling a single witness, telling the judge that they did not believe the state had managed to prove its case. The level of arrogance we are dealing with here, folks, is astonishing. On the 9th of May 2023, Judge Stephen Boyce ruled that the verdict will be live streamed via the court's YouTube channel, which is considered quite a big deal because cameras in the courtroom have been banned since the 23rd of September 2022. On the 24th day of the trial, former FBI Special Agent Doug Hart began his testimony detailing text messages to Chad Daybell from Laurie's iCloud account. Those messages detailed life insurance money in connection to the deaths of their spouses and planning their new life together. The term death percentage was a topic in the text messages, where Laurie would then ask Chad about percentages for her kids and Tammy. Hart said that the closer the number was to 0 or 100, the closer the persons mentioned was to death. With one text reading, "Do you think there is a particularly orchestrated plan to take the children? And we just have to wait for it to be carried out. What should I be doing?" Message from Chad to Laurie: "Yes, we might need to release a little steam when we talk. Anyway, this is the chart that checks what percentage mortals are still in their body. It worked for my friend's wife who died, my neighbor, George Bush, Stanley, etc. I kind of forgot about it because we've been dealing with zombies and demonic entities. But this afternoon, Tammy said she felt lightheaded as if her body and spirit weren't connected." Laurie replied, "I feel lost, like I should be doing something to help." Chad replies, "There is a plan being orchestrated for the children. I was shown last night how it fit together, but it has been taken from my mind, of course." On the 12th of May 2023, Laurie Vallow was convicted on first-degree murder in the deaths of her children and of grand theft. She was also found guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in the death of Tammy Daybell. The jury took less than 7 hours of deliberation to come back with that verdict. You may have noticed the initial charges were misdemeanor charges from earlier in the video, but the main focus from the prosecution were 3 charges of murder, because they were the ones they truly believed they could lock Laurie Vallow up for the rest of her life with. And for those who are curious, here is a clip of the verdicts being read.
In the District Court of the 7th Judicial District of the State of Idaho, in and for the County of Fremont, State of Idaho Plaintiff versus Laurie Noreen Vallow, we the jury, duly impaneled and sworn to try the above entitled action, for our verdict, unanimously answer the questions submitted to us as follows. Question number 1. In regards to count 1 of the amended indictment, is Laurie Noreen Vallow not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan and grand theft by deception? Answer: guilty. Question number 2. In regards to count 2 of the amended indictment, is Laurie Noreen Vallow not guilty or guilty of first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan? Answer: guilty.
Just before we get to the sentence of Laurie Vallow, and a few clips I think are quite relevant to this, because it was broadcast, we are well within our right to show it. Chad Daybell's trial, because he is obviously going on trial at some point, is not scheduled until the 1st of April 2024 and continuing through to the 31st of May 2024. He faces the same charges as Laurie Vallow, but the death penalty is still on the table for him, with a pre-trial conference scheduled for the 22nd of February 2024. Of course, we here will be covering that as well. Laurie Vallow found guilty on 3 charges, quite serious charges. Each carry a minimum jail term of life. Laurie Vallow was offered an opportunity to speak, and she did, just before she was given her sentence. If you can sense any sincerity in this, do let me know, because I couldn't find it anywhere.
Quoting John from the New Testament in the Bible. In John chapter 8, verse 7, Jesus says, "He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her." Then in verse 15, Jesus says, "Ye judge after the flesh, I judge no man. And yet if I judge, my judgment is true." Jesus knows me, and Jesus understands me. I mourn with all of you who mourn my children and Tammy. Jesus Christ knows the truth of what happened here.
The judge sentenced her to 3 life terms without the possibility of parole, and I'm going to play that clip as well.
Based on all the relevant circumstances, including the evidence and recommendations presented in court today, it's the judgment of this court. Ms. Vallow, you'll be sentenced as follows. I'll first note I'm going to take up the counts out of order as I want to address the substantive murder sentences first. So on count 2, the charge you were convicted of, the first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan, you are sentenced to the custody of the State Board of Corrections to serve the maximum allowed sentence of fixed determinate term of life imprisonment with no possibility of parole. On count 4, the charge of the first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow, you are sentenced to the custody of the State Board of Corrections to serve the maximum allowed sentence, a fixed determinate life imprisonment sentence with no possibility of parole. I'll next address the 3 conspiracy counts you've been convicted of, and note under Idaho Code 18-1701, the punishment for those crimes is the same as the underlying offenses you combined to commit. One of the offenses you combined to commit was first-degree murder, so those may be punishable also by imprisonment for life.
I cannot think of someone more deserving for a life term without the possibility of parole more than Laurie Vallow. You betrayed your children. You betrayed your ex-husband. You betrayed your current husband's ex-wife. You did everything through some deluded lens of what humanity is supposed to be. And in doing so, you took away from this world 2 children who had great potential, unrealized because you would not allow it to persist, exist, continue. That is selfish. And that is a terrible mother mentality. How dare you deprive Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow of the right to live? Do enjoy your stay in prison, and you are lucky that they did not pursue the death penalty, because I have a strong belief they would have succeeded.